Conservative approach. Now, a conservative approach requires you to be a little bit more cautious, maybe straight to the point, not so much of emphasizing on every single topic, simply because they gave us a reason for us to believe that they're going to be a little bit more difficult, or there's a few obstacles that we're going to have to keep in mind. I'll give you two scenarios just to give you an idea on how to use this conservative approach. Now, number one, let's just assume that a customer walks in very aggressive. We're talking about intimidating, demanding, maybe a bit rude, a bad attitude, whatever it is. We're talking about a customer that's walking in, intimidating us or trying to intimidate us. Maybe not on purpose. Maybe that's just the way they are. Maybe that's their character. Or simply because they believe by intimidating the other person, they'll be able to obtain what they're looking for. And maybe they're looking for the lowest price. So this customer is going to walk in very intimidating. I mean, we're talking about, look, are you going to help me? Yes or no? How long is it going to take you? I'm looking for $70 a month. If you don't find those $70 a month, I'm leaving. So we're talking about being very aggressive in that sense. Now, first of all, since they're very aggressive, I don't have any time. Are you going to take any longer? I mean, we're talking about being aggressive. So we may have to go a little bit more straight to the point. We're still going to follow certain procedures like confirming steps, offering the approximates. We're going to offer basic information. We're still going to follow the main, most basic, the fundamental steps, because there's no way I'll let anybody intimidate me, or there's no way that I want anybody to force you to give them what they're looking for without you following the steps. So we're still going to follow the steps, but we may not elaborate on the justifying factors, on the loss ratio. We may just choose one or two topics and we'll just emphasize on that. But the fact that they're being aggressive, they're trying to intimidate you, we're going to go a little bit more, we're going to expedite the process a little bit more, simply because we don't have a lot of time. We don't have the luxury of breaking the ice and sitting down and spending 5-10 minutes on educating them. We may have to go a little bit more straightforward. So being conservative means being cautious. We're going to choose the right information to offer. We're going to choose the right options, maybe not too aggressive on the initial payment, simply because we don't have a lot of time. We don't have the luxury. The customer is technically pushing us, pressuring us, and forcing us to do it a little bit faster. So that's one example. Another example number two. A customer that walks in, and from the beginning they tell you, look, I don't have any money, or I don't have too much money. I may not have enough. So from the beginning, they're already advising us that they're limited on cash. They're limited on the amount of money that they have to actually purchase a policy. So these customers are not gonna have the luxury of paying a good $200-300 BF, or at least that's the way it seems. Now we're gonna talk about really handling that situation on another topic, another course, but at least for now, we're talking about a conservative approach. So we're gonna use a conservative option. Now, the second example is mainly conservative on the prices that we're going to give them, versus example number one, it was conservative on the information, the presentation. On this client, we may be able to emphasize on all the tools and use all the information, but when we get to the actual monthly payment and the initial payment, we're going to have to go conservative. So I'll give you an example. A conservative option will be discussing submission, letting them know that we need a minimum. Let's just imagine the monthly payment is 70, submission is 90. So we're going to give them the monthly payment. If they're okay with the monthly, they have the monthly. We're going to give them submission first. So we're going to tell them we need a minimum of $90, and we'll go with a small activation. So $90 minimum today. If they have it, we'll emphasize on an activation of maybe 40 to 50. Simply because they told us they didn't have too much money. Matter of fact, our main focus in this scenario would be to make sure that they have submission. So we're going conservative because we're not going with our regular 150 to 220 approximate. we're going with a conservative option of $90 today, which is submission and a small activation. Let me add a third example. The third example is going to be based on not wanting to pay anything for the down payment. So this is more on a conservative approach based on the initial payment. You're going to have a few customers that are going to tell you, look, I'm not willing to pay anything. I don't want to pay it down. I don't want to pay an initial payment. I don't want to pay anything at all. So it's not so much that they don't have it, it's just they don't want to pay it. So the conservative approach will be using the submission first, letting them know, educating them that we need a minimum of $90. The monthly payment is $70, but minimum of $90, and we're going to go with a small activation, maybe $20 to $40, $20 to $30, depending on how aggressive they are on demanding no initial payment. Now, conservative means being cautious on the information or being cautious on the options that we're offering. So once again, if you determine that a customer is going to be a little bit more difficult, or the situation is going to be a little bit more difficult, they're demanding on time, they're pressuring you, they're intimidating you, you may have to use a conservative approach. If they're emphasizing or just advising us from the beginning of the conversation that they don't have any money, or they don't have much money, or they don't want to pay anything, we may have to go with a conservative approach on the options. So we're going to go with submission, and we're going to give them a small activation, 20 to 30, 40 to 50, whatever it is, but we're going to use the submission and a small activation. This will be considered a conservative approach simply because we want to make sure we close every single deal. So follow these three scenarios. We'll use this concept of a conservative approach, and if you encounter any of these three scenarios, at least now you have an idea of how to handle them.